The very first question that we're going to ask is about the problem. Everything starts here. So what we want to know is, why are they calling us? What problem can we help them solve? Now, some of you might be thinking, well, isn't that obvious? I mean, if they're calling about cosmetic surgery, well, clearly they want something fixed. If they're calling about nose surgery, clearly they're not happy with their nose and they want it adjusted. If they're calling about eye surgery, well, clearly they don't like their glasses or their contact lenses and they want to get rid of them. But like I said before, it's not just having a problem with those things that is enough to motivate somebody to do something. And that's what this is all about. It's about getting somebody to do something differently than they otherwise would normally do. And they want to do it. You have to guide them and help them do it. So the very first question is about asking them what the problem is. And so I might ask something like, well, can you tell me a little bit more about why you're calling me today? Okay. Or can you tell me more about what's causing you a concern that's leading you to call me? They will then be more than happy to share what problem they have. I notice that some callers, strangely, will pretend that they don't have a problem. You might even ask them, well, can you tell me a little bit more about the problem that I can help you solve? They might say, well, I don't have a problem. I find that kind of funny, but at the same time, we have to kind of work with their language. Of course they have a problem. They wouldn't be calling us if they didn't. But if we can work with them and call it whatever it is that they want to call it, that's fine with me. So the important distinction here when asking about the problem is not so much just asking them for the objective view of the problem. For example, in eye surgery, somebody might say, well, my problem is I can't see very well. Well, that's all very nice, but again, like I said, it's typically not enough for somebody to go through the massive degree of effort, the expense, and the stress of having a laser eye surgery. What we want to know is much more than what the objective view of the problem is. For this, I'd like you to think about an onion. So we've got an onion here, which might represent a person. And what we need to do is we need to open up that onion. First of all, we need to address the skin of that onion and we'll call that the fact, okay? So the fact that the onion has a skin, and we need to pull away that skin. That's a fact-based question, if you like, using the analogy. So if I might say, can you tell me what your vision's like? They might say, it's awful, it's terrible, okay? That's a fact. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's a fact to them. That's how they perceive it. Okay, so that's a fact-based question. The second question is a feeling-based question. So that's pulling off another layer of the onion, okay? And the feeling-based question is about how do they feel about that fact? So you might say, well, can you tell me what the problem is? And they might say, well, I can't see well, it's not great. And you might say, well, how does that make you feel? And they might say, well, it doesn't make me feel very good. I feel like I'm incapable of doing the things I want to do. Okay, that's great. So you've got a feeling now. The third step is to ask them an impact question, okay? And that impact question sounds a little bit like, well, how is that, what specifically are you unable to do that you would love to be able to do or have done in the past before you had this problem? Now what we're looking for is specifics, okay? So let me just rephrase. We need the fact, how do you feel, or rather, what is the problem? The feeling, which is how do you feel about the problem? And the impact. How is this problem impacting your daily routines, your daily life? This allows us to get very, very focused on what specifically might be the areas in which they might have these past motivating incidents and these daily hassles, which we're about to ask them next. So the problem question isn't just simple, what's your problem? Why are you calling? We need to get deeper. And that's really the rule for all of these questions. We need to get really deep and understand what impact this problem is having on them. It's the impact that they want to solve, not the problem. Okay? So let's move on to the next question. The next question is the past motivating incident question, PMI for short. So what is this about? Well, as I discussed in the graphic, where you had the motivation of the patient on one side and the timeline on the other side, and the person's motivation goes up over time, it's that past motivating incident that will most likely be pushing them over the edge. What I want you to think about is that people kind of live their lives in 3 different time zones. Number 1, they live in the past. Okay, they have memories about what happened to them in the past. They might be positive, they might be negative. They also have the future. They have hopes about positive things might happening to them, and they have fears about things that might be negative that might happen to them. And then they have a present, and that is typically where most people don't want to be. They either are in the past or they're in the future, but that's not so much the point. What we're after here is really trying to understand now, in this segment, what's happened in the past. Now, the reason they're calling us is because they have a problem to solve. They're experiencing some kind of pain. Now, when I say pain, I don't want you to think about this in the physical sense. I want you to think about this in any sense that the word pain can be applied. It could be psychological. It could be emotional. It could be physical. So they have a pain, and it's over here in the past. And what do they want to do? Well, people typically want to move away from pain. Okay? That's how people are motivated. They typically want to move away from pain. And if we can help them associate the pain with the past, we're golden. They also want to move towards pleasure. And if we can associate pleasure with the future, then we're also moving in the right direction. So basically what we have here is the past, which is associated with pain, and we have the future, which is associated with gain. And what we want them to do is we want them to get away from the past and move towards the future. Now, how we do this is by getting them psychologically involved with the questions we're asking. So this next question elicits this past motivating event. And I want you to pay special attention to the word I emphasize. You don't have to use my exact words, but I want you to really be sure that you're getting the right answer. And you may want to start with the question as I phrase it, and then until you make it good for yourself. The question is phrased like this. Is there anything you've experienced recently that's prompted you to contact us now? Okay, I'll do it again. Is there anything that you've experienced recently that's prompting you to call us now? And I want you to really, really think about this, okay? There's some words here. It's not what's prompting you to call, because then they might say, well, I saw you in the paper, I saw you on the internet. It's, is there anything that you've experienced, something that's happened, okay, that's prompted you to pick up the phone and call me now? Now, what we're after here is we're after them giving us an idea of what happened, what specific event compelled them to actually make a call. When they tell us, we want to get detailed. Remember, there's a fact about an event, there is a feeling they had associated with the event, and there's the impact that event had on their lives. It might not even be an event. It might be a daily hassle. There's the fact that they experienced daily hassles. There's the feeling associated with those daily hassles. And there's the impact those daily hassles have on their lives. So what we want is when we ask them that question, we want to invite them to elaborate. The more colorful, the more specific, the more articulate they can be about the daily hassles or past motivating incidents that they've experienced, the more motivated they're going to make themselves. And when that happens, all you've got to do is step out of the way. As soon as they start actually getting in touch with their emotions, they're going to be asking you for the next step, not the other way around. And this is what we want to do with this past question. Get them in touch with that past. Help them associate it with pain. And when you do that, they will want to see you as a solution to get the gain that they're seeking. Now, the next step is after you've identified what the straw that was that broke the camel's back, after you've actually probed beyond getting that superficial answer that you're most likely to get, which is, well, I just don't like my glasses, or something like that. Once you've got a little bit more detail, then you're ready to start framing the solution. Remember, we're going to ask them to make some big commitments. And we have to make sure that they understand this problem is significant enough, that it's big enough, that this commitment is worthwhile taking. The bigger the problem they see, the more likely they will to overcome the hoops that will, or the barriers that will enable them to make that step to do something that requires more commitment. So the next question, number 3, is the solution question. That question involves asking them, what is it that they envision? What are they hoping to have in the future? What do they want to have? What do they want to be? What do they want to do? Those things are in order to really help that caller become more in touch with their goals and how you can help them achieve those goals because you're actually having conversation about them. The question that you need to ask is, what are you hoping to experience by solving the problem? Now, again, the word experience is critical there. And what I'm asking people to do is to help me give me as much of a clear answer as is possible to explain what success really means to them. So what we're after here is, again, not just a fact, but the feeling around the fact and what impact that solution might have in their lives. That's why this is called the solution question. It's not what treatment do you want. That is the vehicle or the conduit to get to the solution they're after. It's the end state. It's the future that they're looking to experience, whether they something they want to have, be, or do. And in order to get more specific about that, once we've asked them this question and we've asked them to help us be very clear about what solution they're after, we then need to get them to paint a real clear picture of what it is that they want. We want to record their words, not assuming what it is they want. We want to make sure that when they tell us, we're repeating back to them using their words, showing that we've listened, and as well ensuring that they feel encouraged to continue answering our questions. Then what will happen is we need to go to question 4, which is the future motivating event question. The future motivating event is the event they see in the future that is an example of the ideal solution that they're looking for. So earlier in question 3, you asked them what's their solution. What is the ideal future state that they're envisioning? And that's precisely where you want to lead them. Once they start thinking in that level, then you want to get them to give you an example of that. And that's the future motivating event. It might be lots of different things. It might be a wedding. It might be a holiday in the future. It might relate to a change of job. It might relate to a future state that they might just imagine, meaning they might want to get married. They might want to be more attractive. It could be anything, really. But what we're after here is a specific event in time that they can use as an example of what that ideal future state might feel like and what might look like. So you're aiming, ideally, to find a date. The more specific you can make this, the better. If you can get a date, that's great. If you can get a location, if you can get a specific activities that might be being done. So let me give you an example of let's say the patient is interested in getting married. Obviously, you want to ask them, how they feel about getting married. No doubt they're going to be happy about it and excited. You might even want to ask them, so, that sounds really exciting. Can you tell me a little bit more where it's going to be? Where do you plan it? Is it going to be a big wedding? Is it going to be a small wedding? Get them to explain it. Get them to illustrate it for you. You might be thinking, well, what on earth does this have to do with the reason they're calling me? You know what? It has everything to do with the reason they're calling you. One of the major reasons why they're calling you is not to get what it is that you sell. It's to get the effects of what they're going to have after they receive the solution you give them. This has everything to do with why they're calling. So the more you can help them clarify and articulate these things so that they begin thinking very positively about the future, the better that's going to be for you. Now, what you've done here is you've created this sort of emotional roller coaster, if you like. You have reduced their level of positivity with the discussion around the problem. You want to make sure that problem is big enough that they feel a little bit upset about it. We're not going to say that you want to upset patients on the phone, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that they feel that the problem is significant enough that they're willing to make the investment, time, money, stress, to actually achieve the solution they're looking for through you. As you help them describe this past motivating incident, they will have gotten a little bit lower even. They'll become more frustrated. They might even become angry with themselves for not having solved it already. That's good, because the more emotion that's there, the more likely they are to follow your pathway. Now what you want to do is, with the communication of the solution question, number 3, you're bringing them up. You're bringing them up with a feeling like, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a solution to my problem. This is what it is. I can see it. I can describe it. And with the future motivating event question, what you're doing there is you're getting them to really be clear, to give you a very good example of what it is that they envision in their lives in the future, almost as far down to a date. Now, why is a date valuable? Well, I said to you before that one of the challenges that we have is creating urgency for the things that we offer. I could offer people discounts that are time limited. I could offer people half-price deals that run out. But that's my urgency. Many people don't go for those, especially when it comes to these kinds of procedures. What we want is we want them to feel urgent. We want them to say, wow, this is coming up faster than I thought. This whole reason I want to have this done is coming up very, very soon. I need to get this done now. You want their urgency on your side, because if they're urgent, they're going to be asking you to get out of the way so that they can actually have this done. So a specific date is golden. And the reason for that is because it links directly to the deadline that you're looking for. If you have that deadline, you're in a much better position to be able to offer them something that they want when they want it. And in doing all of this, these 4 questions, again, the problem question, the past motivating incident question that reveals the pain, the solution question that is all about their ideal state, and the 4th question, which is the specific manifestation of that solution when phrased as a future motivating event. These 4 questions, this cluster, is what I term as the dominant buying motive. And I like to think about the dominant buying motive as a heart, if you will, because that's where the emotion lies. That is the central key reason they're going to want to do this. And if you've done a good job with asking these questions appropriately, with getting really, really specific, again, peeling back that onion, removing that outer layer of the fact, getting past that feeling layer, and getting right to the heart of the matter, then you'll actually be able to get at what I call the dominant buying motive. That dominant buying motive, if you know it, is going to be what takes you all the way through to the end of the call, and even might be leverageable at the appointment itself in order to persuade and influence the patient to go to the next step, which is treatment. Again, there is nothing manipulative about this. There is nothing pushy about this whatsoever. All we're doing is helping patients get in touch with their most important reasons for doing this. If we can do that, then we're doing them a massive favor by helping them become clear and by helping them get what it is that they wanted when they called you in the first place.